swamp has a drain, Ian?
I'm not saying it does.
No, it doesn't, though. It's not even a swamp. Let's talk about what it really is.
What is it really?
It is a drainless, gold-plated hot tub.
Hi, I'm Ian Bremmer in the middle of Times Square with 5-foot Elmos all around me. It's kind of weird. And welcome to the GZERO World Podcast. I'm host of the weekly show GZERO World on YouTube, and in this podcast we share extended versions of the big interviews from that show. This week I sit down with Anthony Scaramucci, also known as the Mooch. He's a longtime fixture on Wall Street, but is most famous for his 11-day tenure as White House Communications Director briefly last summer. He's been in the room with President Trump many, many times, and today I will ask him about what goes on behind the scenes of the White House, including how Trump makes decisions and what a summit between Trump and Kim Jong-un might look like. Let's get to it.
The GZERO World is brought to you by our founding sponsor, First Republic. First Republic, a private bank and wealth management company. Imagine a bank without teller lines, where your banker knows your name and its most prized currency is extraordinary client service. Hear directly from First Republic's clients by visiting firstrepublic.com.
And I'm with Anthony Scaramucci, managing partner of Skybridge Capital, also founded the Scaramucci Post, and of course for 10 glorious days.
11
glorious, 11, I'm the count. I love to count.
The guy's trying to jip me. It's like unbelievable. I mean,
Well, you want that extra day.
Why not? It's like 9.1% of my federal career. Why would you jip me out?
That's fair. White House Communications Director.
It was a pretty productive 11 days. I mean, let's face it. But I mean, as in the process of firing people, I got myself fired, but that happens in Washington.
You did more in 11 days than many people I know in years.
Yeah, look, one of the weird things about the whole thing is I didn't realize the symbiosis between some of these like political hacks that work either in the White House or up on the Hill and their symbiotic relationship with the press, where they just like leak like sieves and they use that information as currency inside of Washington. And
everyone in it for themselves.
People are like, okay, I got to stab this guy's eyeball out before he stabs my eyeball out.
You are also the only man I know that's brought autoeroticism as a concept to the White House.
Okay, you've never said a curse word, Ian?
I have.
Look into the camera.
With
you. Never said a curse word?
I have.
Yeah,
I have.
See, he's said a curse. This guy curses, okay?
I do.
Most people curse. You think I'm the only guy that curses? Yeah. You think John Kelly doesn't say curse words? I mean, he's a Marine, right? Whatever I said about Bannon in terms of the autoeroticism, which obviously he can't do, you know that. Okay, so, but what I said about him is absolutely true. I mean, one of the things I've been decent at over my 30-year career is I can identify and evaluate talent pretty quickly. And I can see what people's motivations are pretty quickly.
Tell me about Trump himself. So all these people that really just can't stand Trump, you know him, you decide to work with him. What are they wrong about?
Okay, first of all, the president is a very gregarious, charming guy. Okay, now some of your liberal friends or your establishment Republicans are like, choking and they're blowing in a barf bag right now, me saying that, but way more thoughtful than they want to give him credit for. He's got way more common sense, but he also has a backbone, and so he's able to push an agenda or push ideas a lot like Reagan.
Now, I mean, obviously, we've seen this also, this charm has worked in his meeting with Emmanuel Macron. The two men get along very well. Hasn't with some others, like Merkel in particular. What do you think that's about?
I'm not Angela Merkel's advisor, okay, but if I was her advisor, I'd say, hey, you respect this guy. He's 72 years old. He is the American president. He won a very hard-fought campaign. He earned the right to be the American president. And, drop the tabloid nonsense and all that stuff that you hear and respect the guy. If you do that, you're going to go really far with him. Macron has decided to do that.
And Merkel has not.
I think Merkel has not. And so one is landing at Andrews and the other one's landing at Dulles. He's sending them a message too, right? You don't want to respect me. That's cool. I'm not going to respect you.
So the decision to go to Davos, you and I know Davos very well, obviously. But Trump, of course, for a long time talking about the base and was, if anything, opposed to the globalists, right? He did very well at Davos. The speech went well. The CEOs were very flattering. Yeah. Do you, first of all, do you think that was the right choice?
Totally. I mean, listen, that was also very misunderstood about the guy. That was because of Sloppy Steve, right? He was trying to position him away from quote-unquote globalism. He was trying to create this schism. The president is a multidimensional guy, and he's way more faceted than people want to give him credit for. And what I said, there's a duality to the president where he recognizes that he needs to engage in the global community. He needs to strengthen our alliances and put our adversaries on watch. But he also needs to be the number one salesperson for America to talk about our economy and bring those international CEOs together like he did in Davos. And the flip side is he's got to be focused on the American worker. And so his message to President Xi or Macron or any of these guys, help me with the breadbasket of the United States because it'll be great for you, it'll be great for the world. And he brought the largest delegation that's been brought to Davos. And that's the president's antithetical thinking. George W. Bush wouldn't do it. He went to Sharm el-Sheikh. He wouldn't go to Davos. Barack Obama wouldn't do it because they didn't want to be perceived to be an elitist. But the president has a moniker where he's not an elitist, so he can go there. It's like Nixon going to China, right?
I get this, but if we've elected a person who specifically says, I'm going to drain the swamp, and one of the biggest domestic priorities appears to be...
The swamp has a drain in?
I'm not saying it does.
No, it doesn't, though. And it's not even a swamp. Let's talk about what it really is.
What is it really?
It is a drainless, gold-plated hot tub. Okay, now this is what these guys do, okay? They size you up immediately. It's like a Malcolm Gladwell blank exercise. They say, okay, can this guy be bought, unbought, bought, unbought? And so if you can be bought, they're like, hey, man, here's a cigar, here's a champagne bottle, get in the hot tub with me. If you can't be bought, they're like, okay, let's oppo this guy. Let's hit this guy in the head with a spike. We got to kill this guy. We got to get him off the playing field because he may do something that would be a disaster for us.
So a lot
he
of
may tell the American people
are a lot of the
truth.
people around Trump in the hot tub?
Oh yeah. Oh, come on, you know that.
I know that's
Yeah,
that's
know,
why I'm
that's
asking.
very frustrating for the president. He's not in the hot tub. This guy lost $1 billion going down there. 100%. I mean, people boycotting his golf courses or taking
Then why
Trump Soho
put the
name.
cabinet in place? Why put the billionaires in? Why put the CEOs in? Why not actually, once you've won, why not actually walk the talk in terms of the people that are going to make decisions for the workers, for the average American?
Okay, but here's the problem. Okay, you now have to get people. The barriers to entry to go to Washington are extremely high if you're a successful person. It's really designed for lawyers and lobbyists and academics to go work in Washington than it is for our nation's best business people.
So if you could actually
The system's rigged
if you
and
could
it's
advise the president right now to do something that would actually make a difference, something that's potentially doable, what would it be?
Well, it's not doable, but this is what I would recommend that he do. I would recommend that he impose mandatory voting in the society like they have in Australia.
In Australia, for example.
Yeah, 100%. It's okay. We're going to go to the
Small
Australian,
fine, people show
We're going to
up.
go to the Australian model. We're going to go mandatory voting. They'll get 85% voter participation, and bam, you will liquefy and dilute the current system of extremists because these are products.
We seem to be moving the other direction. We're trying to find we're moving in the other direction, right? We're trying to find ways to disenfranchise people, make it harder for people to vote.
Some people say, well, that's a right-leaning thing that they're making it harder. I don't agree with that. The left has done a very good job hiding behind that. They don't want any more people voting than the right does. Because if you have a lower voter turnout and you have voter apathy, the jokers can stay permanently in power. Okay, so they don't want either side, if they're going to be brutally honest with the American people, say, no, we don't want anybody voting. Why would we want anybody voting?
The fact that the media is, sort of in a constant state of apoplexy with Trump, and Trump also seems to relish that fight. Yeah. Do you think he's handling it well? Do you think it's been good for him?
Well, it's been very good for him. It's been very bad for them. I mean, because
he says it's good for them. He says they're making a lot of money, they get a lot of eyeballs.
It's good for them as it relates to ratings. It's bad for them as it relates to psychology because they're out of their minds. It's like a Greek tragedy. It's like watching somebody through their anger and frustration blind themselves and then cry in their own soup. I mean, it's sort of crazy. So if I were them, no one listens to me, which is fine, but if I were them, I would de-escalate. And frankly, if I was the president, I would de-escalate. There's no reason to have this level of hostility on either side. The president for 45 years had a great relationship with the media. There's no reason why he can't continue to have a great relationship with the media. I would like the president out of the corner of conservative media and once again back across the whole media spectrum because he's a larger-than-life figure. He's a television star. He had 15 years on a major network with high ratings. And I think he needs to do that to appeal his common sense wisdom to moderates and independents who probably still like him or pause and reflect and say, wait a minute, the economy's doing way better. Tax cuts seems to be working. He looks like he's solving the North Korean problem, which was an intractable problem. Make a prediction on your podcast, he'll solve the Iranian problem. And so to me, people look at that and say, that's really good. Let's get him out of his corner that he's painted in.
Of the people around Trump right now, who's the one or two or three that you would say, here's someone that I'm so glad is there fighting the good fight, defending the president?
Jim Mattis is one of them. Mike Pompeo is another one. Mike's a phenomenal guy, Steve Mnuchin's been a friend of mine for 30 years. He's a very, very, very smart guy, and he has a very good understanding of the president. He has a very good understanding of directionally where the policies should go to make the American workers prosper and to make American companies prosper. Remember, there's a synthesis, right? We can't split it. That's what I hated about Bannon. We have globalists and we have nationalists. No, we don't. We have to have harmony between both groups, okay? And that's something that the president really understands.
Is a mooch only 11 days because you're fundamentally a populist?
No, I'm 11 days because I was reporting directly to the president, and when John Kelly got the job, he had to assert his militaristic military muscles and fire me.
I ask that though because
I'm not a populist.
Because given what you're saying,
I'm not a populist.
But given the fact that you are trying to fight for the common man at a time when you're saying that everyone in there is in the golden hot tub. I mean, that kind of implies that the system is sufficiently broken that you just weren't going to make it for a period of time.
No. Populism always ends up as a failed concept, okay? Because at the end of the day, you have to integrate and you have to synthesize the establishment with the common cause of the American people. You have to create that synthesis. You can't be on one side or the other, okay? What's interesting about my life is that I grew up in a blue-collar family, and then I went to Harvard Law School, and I lived in these hedge fund salons and went to Davos with people like you and, seen all the action at the top, right? You have to synthesize the two. You have to make both sides feel non-threatened, okay? One problem with populism is that it's too threatening to the established powers that are inside the system, okay?
Anthony Scaramucci,
good
to see you
here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man.
That's your show this week. Come back next week, GZERO World going to bring you Jonah Goldberg from the National Review. Fascinating guy, a lot to talk about. See you then.
The GZERO World is brought to you by our founding sponsor, First Republic. First Republic, a private bank and wealth management company. Imagine a bank without teller lines, where your banker knows your name and its most prized currency is extraordinary client service. Hear directly from First Republic's clients by visiting firstrepublic.com.
You're listening to the GZERO World with Ian Bremmer podcast, your weekly geopolitical deep dive into the world's biggest news stories, featuring in-depth conversations with global leaders and newsmakers. To get more of GZERO's insights on global politics every morning, sign up for our free newsletter, GZERO Daily, at gzeromedia.com.